All right, hey folks. So today I'm going to be talking about my training for the next 6 weeks, where I'll be doing a bit of a mini cut and detailing what I'll be doing. Hopefully, you guys can learn something from it. So let's get cracking. Firstly, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any questions or comments, pop them down below. And if you'd like to work with me on your own strength and physique goals, there's a link in the description. So yeah, let's get straight in with it. Now, in terms of the last 6 months, here's what I've been up to. So I finished a mini cut in roughly April, and that mini cut saw me go from about 88 kilos to 80 kilos in about 5 weeks' time. This was documented on my podcast. For those of you who don't know, I've had a podcast which has been running for 3 years. Actually, I keep it separate from my YouTube because it's slightly different content. It's longer, and it's less of the sort of short format stuff. But if you want to check it out, check out Faz Lifts on iTunes, SoundCloud, all that stuff. Anyway, they're all linked in the description. So this was done with a relatively aggressive deficit, quite a heavy deficit, and I went from 88 to 80, and it was a good cut. It cut off a lot of fat, and it was great. There was no rebound whatsoever. I set it up correctly, so I was eating all the right stuff to enable me to just smoothly transition back into sort of a maintenance / bulking diet directly afterwards. And yeah, it was very successful. So that was 88 to 80, maintained for a while, and then I carried on with a lean bulk. It was very successful. Now, in terms of what I'm doing now, this is the plan. So I'm going to be doing a 6-week mini cut. I've set the stall out for about 6 weeks, but I'm saying to myself it'll be anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how quickly the weight comes off. So I've not actually done any cutting for 6 months now. So my body is pretty fresh, it's pretty primed, so a cut will come off quite nicely. So in terms of the frequency of mini cuts, I think twice a year is about right. Any significantly more than that, I think the rate of weight gain after the cut is probably too much. So if people are using more than 2 mini cuts a year, they're probably just getting fat when they should be either maintaining or gaining weight. So it's really down to the rate of weight gain in between the cuts. Now, why do I prefer mini cuts? For me, it means I can get back to massing. It kind of suits my psychology as well. And I'm also not doing this to get contest lean. So what I mean by saying it suits my psychology is that I quite like suffering for a shorter period of time just so I can get back to, either maintenance or lean bulking. I'm not really that great with just cutting down ever so slightly. I seem to find my appetite gets a lot, it just goes away if I have my calorie intake set quite low. If I continue to have my calorie intake set at a moderate level, it just doesn't work as well. So the final thing is, yeah, I'm not using this to get contest lean. Now, if I was using this to get right down to contest shape, it wouldn't be a mini cut. It wouldn't be a drastic cut. I would probably go a lot slower. This kind of stuff is quite good for me to get down to about 15% body fat, like a genuine 15 where I can see my abs. But anything above and beyond that, it doesn't work as well. So I would have to slow it down. But anyway, yeah, mini cut, big lesson from this is couple of times a year is about right. Anything more than that, and you're probably gaining way too much in between your mini cuts. And it's not something you use to get right down to contest shape, but it'll probably be good enough for you to look good at a beach or just be comfortable getting back to your mass. So next thing is, yeah, so rate of massing and cutting. So previous mini cut took me from 88 to 80 in 5 weeks. This bulk took about 6 months, and it took me from 80 to 85. Now, that's a reasonable ratio. So that's kind of what you should be aiming for. You should be aiming to be in either maintenance or bulk mode for the majority of the year. If you're spending the majority of your time cutting, which a lot of people do, it probably means, one, your cuts are just inefficient. And you try and cut, you kind of fail with cutting. You try and do it gently by being nice to yourself and having a treat every now and again. And before you know it, you're 6 months down the line, you've not cut any weight. That's not a great way to do things. I like to get in and out, smash it. And then also the other mistake that people make is when they actually finally finish the diet, they're in such a massive relief, probably because they've been trying to cut for so long that they just end up bulking too fast and have this massive sort of rebound, which is not great. People talk all the time about how fast cuts can lead people to binging. I'm not actually sure that's the case necessarily for everyone, certainly that I've worked with. Like, I know with a lot of the people that I've worked with, the fast cuts tend to lead to very good rebounds and very good sort of like dietary control afterwards, because you've got to set it up right. But also it means you're spending less time in that whole dieting zone, like 6 weeks of cutting rather than 6 months of the feeling of cutting, even though you're perhaps splurging on the weekend and all that. 6 months of failed cutting is a lot more stressful than 6 weeks of actual just hard cutting. So I think it's one of those things where just to say that hard cuts potentiate like people to binge, I think there's more nuance to that. I think it's also about the length of the cut as well, which is quite important. So anyway, for me, my goal now is to get from about 85 back down to about 80. I should probably be leaner, than in this time at 80, just because I've gained some muscle over the last 6 months. I've regained some of the muscle that I lost during the issues of 2020. So that's kind of the goal. So I'm only giving myself maximum 6 weeks. It might take a little bit less time, but I think that's a good kind of ratio. Also, psychologically, it's not a really nice place to be if you're just continuously cutting. So if you do cut, like, big lesson from this slide is, look, if you are cutting, just get it over and done with, and then go back to either maintaining or massing. It's just better for your gains, and it's better for you psychologically and for your health as well. So what I'm going to use to do this cut this time is fasting. Now, I quite like fasting. I've done fasting in some format since probably 2010, so well over a decade at this stage. So the reason that I'm going with fasting this time, as opposed to just a harsh deficit, is that this creates a deficit in a way which suits my psychology. So I quite like going at stuff just hard and fast. I'm more of a abstinence is better than moderation type of guy, right? So this is quite good for me. Now, I recall, I think it was Menno Henselman said at one point during one of his interviews that fasting might suit people who have more of an emotional relationship with food. And I guess that's probably me, because I used to be overweight. So creating a deficit in this way suits my psychology better than just being on a gradual deficit the whole time. So now the other thing which is really important about fasting and its success factors is that you've got to have an established track record of actually being able to maintain or lean bulk. You see this a lot with people who use fast, because fasting is a very good way to lose weight, right? No one's arguing that, it is. But I mean, I did a video on this a while back, and I said fasting makes you stupid, and a lot of people hated the video because of the title. But actually, the point I was making in that video was just that fasting is a very effective way at losing weight. Sure, it is, no complaint there. But if you don't have a good handle on your diet, then when you come off the fast, you'll just go nuts, because you already don't have a great handle on your diet, and then you're hungry. So you need to go into fasting with a bedrock of what you do eat, like a successful track record of going, okay, I have the knowledge of myself and what I like to eat to be able to maintain my weight. If you go into it blind, if you go into it basically out of control, right, there's no way you're going to control yourself with the hunger that comes from a diet on top of that. And so that's where people fail. Then they blame fasting, but it's not actually the fault of fasting. It was the fault of your diet in the first place. So that potentiated what went wrong. Now, the fasting is very hard to mess up because, well, you don't have to count calories, like during the fast, of course. You just eat nothing, right? You just, water, coffee, and good intentions and fresh air. That's all you have, right? Obviously, you still need to balance your calories, but I mean, during the fasting times, you just cut out food altogether. Now, the problem always comes after that, because, well, people, if they don't count calories or they miscount calories, then their overall weekly deficit just gets demolished because they just binge and splurge. So issue with the thing about fasting, it's great, right? But the lesson from this slide is, if you are going to do it, you better have a good track record of eating at maintenance or whatever, or being able to demonstrate some dietary control after the fast. Because trust me, if you don't have any control before going into fasting, you're definitely not going to have any control after fasting, right? So make sure you've got a proven track. Deal with those issues first, all right? So part of those dealing with those issues is having a way of eating. Hire someone like me so can sort that out, so then you have something for life. Now, the last point here on this slide is that in terms of actually creating a schedule for you which works, beyond fasting, this is where VLCDs and LCDs have their uses as an educational tool, because set up correctly, an LCD can teach you a lot about what the bare bones of a diet should look like. But that, I won't say any more on that now. Okay, so in terms of how I'm going to be fasting, now I'm probably going to be fasting 1 or 2 days a week. Okay, 1 or 2. Monday is typically my busiest day, so I'm literally fasting right now. Neither of these days is a training day. So either Monday is a busy day, but it's not a training day. Thursday, I might be fasting 1 or 2 days. Definitely always Monday, potentially also Thursday. Thursday is when I jog. So I don't need to be full to jog. In fact, it's probably lighter to be lighter. So in terms of how I'm going to do my Sunday or my Monday fast, Sunday night I'll finish eating at 6 p.m. and then Monday I'll begin eating at 6 p.m. A full 24 hours. That's it. Now in that time period, I would have missed about 3 to 4 meals. Anywhere between 21 to 2,800 calories will be just gone. Now, a question that people always ask me is, do you make up the protein? I don't. All right. So that means yes. On some days, like Monday, might only be having 60 grams of protein. I realize, yeah, forgive me, Schoenfeld, but I realize that that's, an issue, but I've not seen it to be a problem. Like, I don't want to be sat there at 6 p.m. tonight trying to eat back 180 grams of protein. That's no bueno. That's not the idea. Consider your fasting meals as just gone and then go back to your usual meal structure. Like I normally have 3 to 4 meals a day. So I'll just skip off certain meals and then get back to my schedule. I don't try and make up for the meals. I don't try and make up for the protein. It's just a lost 24 hours of 3 or 4 meals. And that's what creates a deficit. So important lesson from this slide. That's a nice way to set up your fasting schedule. One 6 p.m. to another 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. And don't eat back your meals. Don't eat back your protein. I've not found the need to eat back the protein, and definitely don't eat back your food because, well, that's the point of the fast, isn't it? To create a deficit. So in terms of what I do eat, usually I eat about 3 700-calorie meals. There's about 60 grams of protein in each meal, about 180 grams total per day, about 20 grams of fat, 300-ish carbs, and about 60 grams of fiber. Pretty much all my food is whole food, minimally processed. Veggies to the tune of about 1.6 kilograms. I have a lot of beans, legumes, and lentils, and I have a small amount of lean meat, not really that much. Lean meat composes of probably about 10 to 20% of my diet. The rest is just vegetables, beans, legumes, lentils, stuff like that. So that's roughly what it looks like. That's how it's structured. Fat intake is quite low, but then I also accept that I'm probably going to have free meals, social occasions where generally fat tends to be a bit higher, so I don't mind having fat that low. It hasn't affected me. It doesn't affect my mood, doesn't affect my sleep, sex drive, or my blood work, so I'm happy for it to be at that level. And in terms of cardio, Thursday is my jogging day, where I'll be jogging anywhere between 40 to 60 minutes. Yes, I jog now. Thank you. I'm one of those guys. 5 days a week, the steps will be about 12 to 15,000, and 2 days I'll be mostly sedentary. That is Monday and also Saturday, where steps are more along the lines of 4,000. I don't mind that. It's a full rest day. It feels okay in the midst of all the rest of the work. And at my age, I kind of need it. So in terms of training volume, now I'm currently training about 4 days a week. I'm not purposely going to be decreasing the volume. Okay. I might reduce the volume reactively. So the thing is, it's only a 6-week cut. One of the things that annoys me is people who just think, okay, I'm going to go on a mini cut and I'm going to reduce my volume. Why? I mean, you don't even know if you can cope with it yet. I want to keep volume the same until I get feedback from my body that I need to reduce it. So if I start getting overly tired before I expect to, if I can't keep up with the volume, then sure, I'll reduce volume reactively, but I don't set out my stall to say, okay, I'm just going to reduce my volume, because I don't think that's the point. Other thing is, there's going to be a higher degree of variety during the course of this next 6 weeks in my training. So I'm going to switch out exercises more often. I'm going to do a lot more period of sort of a, I guess, conjugate style of periodization, because recovery is compromised due to the lack of food intake. So because of that, it's important to have a high degree of variety. Proper periodization right now becomes crucial. You can't have any leeway in terms of making headway. You've got to change things around a lot more often to allow you to keep the volume high and allow you to avoid burnout. There's more chance of you burning out now over the next 6 weeks than there is of you if you're in a full, bulk mode. So the last thing is, if you do periodize properly and you take care of recovery, you should get better results with fat loss as well. Effective training and proper periodization should help the cut, because it'll increase your partitioning ratio. It'll mean you're more likely to gain muscle. So proper training becomes absolutely crucial. All right, folks, that's my plan over the next 6 weeks. So do follow along. I'll probably be documenting a lot of this on the podcast. So go ahead and check that out. It's on iTunes, SoundCloud, and pretty much every major podcast platform. And I'll probably do some updates on here as well. So hopefully you guys learn something from that about how I do things, what I've been doing the past 6 to 8 months, what I'm planning for the next 6 weeks, how you could implement something the same. And hopefully you found that useful. Let me know what you think. and I will speak to you next time. Take care.